Hey everyone, it's Miss Johnson, and this is the recording for part two of the Excel learning. This is the second, half of the course. So last week I posted a video all about um, learning about Excel in terms of organizing it, formatting it, and doing formulas. Today we're going to learn all about functions and charts. So this is like the little bit more advanced version of Excel. So our learning targets today are I can write a function in Excel and create a chart in Excel. Pretty straightforward. Let's do a little warm up first. Take a moment, pause the video, tell me what do you think is the biggest advantage of Excel? Would you say its ability to organize in rows and columns? That's A. B, its formatting capabilities. C, its math skills. Or D, its picture abilities. I would take anything other than D because Excel is not known for its picture abilities. It's not what Excel is good at. I would probably lean towards A, its ability to organize in rows and columns, or C, its math skills. We're going to learn more about the math skills today. But Excel can be a really powerful tool in terms of doing automatic calculations, but also keeping a lot of things, like hundreds to thousands of things organized in a spreadsheet. Word just can't compare there. Calendar, take a look at your announcements, and whatever else I'm doing in class. You should be finishing up the 413 Excel assignment. If you want details about when it's due, make sure to check your course. Remember, that's the one where you're creating a spreadsheet that gives details about a collection of items. There should be a walkthrough or a class recording where we did a part of the one. So if you're struggling with that, definitely take a look back at that. Remember when we talked last class, we talked about organizing things, inputting things into a spreadsheet. So remember we talked about columns are about a category of information about a thing, while rows are the thing itself. So if I were creating a spreadsheet about quarter collection, each column would be an information about the quarter. So maybe one column would be what state it's of or what national park it's of. Another column would be when did I first get a quarter? And then another column would be how many of those types of quarters that I have. And then each row would be information about a specific type of quarter. So my first row may be about my Kentucky quarters. My second row may be about my Massachusetts quarters. Third row, Colorado, you get the point. We also talked about some Excel vocab. I'm not going to go through this, but know that cells are going to be really important to know how to find. And using the formula bar is going to be important because formula bars help us see what functions and stuff we're using. If you'd like to test your skills in finding certain cells in Excel, you can take a pause and figure out this secret message. So last class we talked all about formulas. So remember, formulas are calculations written by you. So if you put information into Excel, like I say, 4 and 5, and then I write equals, and then I add these together, B5 plus B6, it adds it up. Remember, if I change a number, it'll automatically change here. This is a formula. So it's written by you. It's usually more of a simple equation. Excel saw that this was built into their program, right? Being able to do math, and they thought, well, what if I could take these math problems that people commonly have, like adding up a bunch of things, or getting an average of something, or finding the biggest number of something, and actually code it into the program so people are able to do it without having to remember how exactly do I take an average of all of these things. And that's where functions come in. So functions are calculations defined by Excel. So these are common things that people want to do with numbers. And instead of actually having to do all the math out, you just tell Excel, hey, here's what I want to do, and here's the numbers. They're a lot simpler than formulas once you understand how to use them. And we'll break that down in a second. Notice the similarities between both of these. They both start with an equal sign. And that's about it when it comes to similarities. So let's first dive into what are the different kinds of functions we have, and then we're going to talk about how do actually are they created. So there are hundreds of different functions, but we're going to focus on 5 of them today. So these are the most common ones in my opinion. Number 1, sum, adding all numbers in a range, or talk about a range in a second together. 2, average, getting an average of all the numbers. So having a range of numbers and saying, okay, here's the middle. 3 and 4, max and min, I put them together because they're pretty similar. Either get the biggest number or the smallest number. And then count gets the number of numbers in a range. So if I had the numbers, 3, 5, 10, and let's make this easy for me, 8. That's not very easy. 1. If I wanted to sum all of these numbers together, add them all up, I'd add them all up. 3 plus 6, that's 9, plus 10, that's 19, plus 1, that's 20. So 20 would be my sum. An average of these, remember, take a moment and remember how you get an average. You got to add all of them up and then divide by the number of numbers. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different numbers here. So my average would be 20 divided by 4, which is 5. So my average number here is 5. Max obviously is the biggest number, min is the smallest number. So my maximum is 10, my minimum is 1. We know that just by looking at it. Count is the number of numbers, which seems confusing, but basically you just say, hey, is this a number? Yeah, okay, 1. That's our second number, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 numbers here, so my count is 4. So this random group of numbers, the sum is 20, average 5, etc., etc. So I was able to do that by myself using mental math. Obviously, I could use Excel for how to do that, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So these functions are not really useful when we have all these small numbers, but it's really helpful when you start to get into really big numbers. If you want to add up 100 numbers, it's going to be a lot easier to just say sum and then put in the range of numbers rather than saying 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, etc., etc. Max and min, it's really important, we're going to get to this in a second, it's really important that you look at the entire range. You are smart enough that you know where the maximum number and the minimum number is, but you want to make sure you have it actually search the whole thing, because if you don't, you're going to get stuck with the wrong one. Okay, what's a range, Ms. Johnson? Let's talk about it. There are 3 different parts of a function. 1, equal sign. Always start with an equal sign. Always start with an equal sign. Let's Excel know you're going to do some sort of calculation. 2, you're going to have the function name. Function names are just all the things we've talked about. So one of them could be sum, they could be average, max, min, count. Those are the different function names. They're stylized in all caps. If you write it not in caps, it'll still work. But it's usually in all caps. So that you're telling Excel, what do you want to do? So if I want to get an average, I'm going to say average. If I want to see the biggest number, I'm going to tell it max, etc., etc. Range. This is where things are starting to get confusing. Basically, it's where Excel is going to get your numbers. So imagine you're in a huge warehouse and someone says, go find the scissors. You're going to be like, that's impossible. It's 100, it's like 2,000 square feet in here. There's a billion boxes, it's a bunch of shelves. I can't find the scissors. You're just going to give up. That's how Excel is like until you give it a range of cells. If someone says, hey, I need you to grab the scissors, they're in aisle B towards the back on your left in a box labeled scissors. You'd be like, great. So then you go find the scissors, right? That's what you're doing with the range of cells. You're telling Excel, hey, here are my numbers that I want you to look at this spreadsheet. Because without that, Excel's going to take a look at this entire spreadsheet and has no idea what numbers you want to use. You say, hey, I want to use these numbers. That's going to be your range, and you're going to tell it to add up all of those numbers. When we do ranges in Excel, you're going to use a colon to get all the cells between 2 cells. So you could say A1, comma, A2, comma, A3, or you could just say A1, colon, A4, A10. That'll get all of the cells in between them. So let's take a look at an example here. So I want to get the total number of cars seen, so that means I'm going to use a sum here. Equal sign, because we always start with an equal sign. And then where are all my numbers? Well, they start in B2 and they go to B6. So my function is going to be equals sum B2 colon B6. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment and have you try this out yourself. If you're feeling confident, you can do it and then watch me do it. If you want to do it with me, you can do it with me. But go ahead and grab some, make a list of random numbers. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So open up Excel, put in a list of random numbers. I did mine from B3 to B8. If you put it in a different place, that's totally fine. It just means your ranges are going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to label each one of these so you know what I'm getting, but we're going to do the sum, the average, biggest, smallest, and then how many ones we wrote down. So if I want to do the sum, I'm going to start with an equal sign. Always start with an equal sign. Notice I'm typing this literally in the box. I'm going to type sum. You'll notice that there's this pop-up that comes up. Excel sees that I'm trying to do a function, and it helpfully gives me all of these different ones. If you just double click on it, it's just going to put a little parentheses here. This little helpful thing kind of trips students up. It's telling you correctly that you want to put in numbers, but you don't want to put in commas. So what we're going to do here, instead of putting 5 and then 13, that's a bad way of doing that. That's called hard coding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click where my numbers start. So I'm going to click on B3, and then I'm going to drag all the way down to B8. And now all the numbers that I want are highlighted here. B3 colon B8. I'm going to close my parentheses. That's my function. When I hit enter, it's going to do all the math for me. Watch this. Pretty cool. How do I know it's still a function, Miss Johnson? Well, if you click on it, notice up here, you can see that it's still a function up here. And the coolest part about this is if you change any of the numbers, the sum updates too. So let's say it's not 14, maybe it's 41. I mixed up the numbers. When I hit enter, notice that my sum changes. All right, I'm going to do average and the other ones as well too. Again, I'm going to always type equals. I'm going to type in my thing. Notice when I start typing average, it pulls it up. If I just double click on it, I can make the parentheses for me. Again, I'm going to click from B3 to B8. Close my parentheses, hit enter. I think I'll divide this in 2 videos again and just talk about charts in the second half. Max and min. Okay, you're a smart person. You can look at these numbers and say, obviously, it's a 65, Miss Johnson. You might be tempted to just click on that number. Here's why that's the wrong thing to do. Let's say this isn't 50, but it's actually 5,000. If I hit enter, notice all of these update. This is still telling me my max is 65. It's because I tried to outsmart the computer. Don't outsmart the computer. I'm going to change this. If you ever have something in here and you want to like shift it around, just get rid of the whole thing until you have the open parentheses, then you'll be able to click and drag without it, okay? I'll make sure also not clicked into any other cells or you won't be able to do the click and drag. My max is also going to be B3 to B8. Notice I'm using the same range for every one of these things. And if I do that, now it will successfully update to the correct maximum number. Okay, so don't outsmart the computer, just give it the whole thing to look at. It'll come up with the right number, I promise. Minimum, that's min. Again, I'm going to do B3 to B8. Count, it's just literally looking at, is there a number in each one of these things? And the answer is yes. I have 6 different numbers. So you can see up at the top all of my different functions here. Last thing you can do is on your own answer these questions. Take a look at my order number and the number of bracelets. Think about which function would I use to answer the question, how many bracelets have I sold? You can tell me the number easily, but what would be the function that I would use to figure that out? What would be the function for which order has the most number? How would I figure that out? How many orders have I gotten for bracelets? What function would I use for that? What's the average number of bracelets I sell per order? All right, Functions, talked about functions. In the next part of this video, we'll talk about charts. See you then.